My presentation will be about the youth and video gaming. The current population in the US is 328.3 million people, and the average amount of gamers, which are children, are 64 million. And over here, in this in this graph, it shows that the gender between male and female is pretty equal, 56% being male and the other 44% being female. And that over here it shows that 26% under the age of 18 years in the US are under the age of 18 years. And 18 to 35 is about 30%. 36 to 49 is 17%, and 27% of the US population is 50 years and older. And the mysterious material that I came up with was from Jim McGonigal, Gaming Can Make a Better World. And her overall argument in this TED Talk was to show how video gaming has the ability to show real-world problems, which essentially came up with my research question of to what extent do video games have a psychological effect on the youth? Because they're still developing their thoughts and behaviors in the real world and in video games. Which essentially my argument will be about video gaming is good for the youth, but to a certain extent. And for a certain extent of what I mean is how the type of video game that they play and also how long in time the youth should be playing as well. And the lenses that I will be exploring is the scientific, social, and futuristic lenses. From the cognitive skills, which is my first claim, is coordination, which focuses the attention of the brain and the eye catches. There's also problem-solving skills of how the child or the young adult can create mistakes, but can also fix their own problems as well to make it better. It also improves memory, but only certain types. It also increases the attention they gather and the speed at which the brain catches. And this is mainly in the hippocampus, which is part of the brain, and it revolves around memory and learning capabilities as well as the motivation and emotions. And each human being has two of them, one on the left side, one on the right side of the brain. But the counter for this is that only certain types of video games will cause a child or a young adult to be violent and aggressive, and they will only be violent and or aggressive if they are exposed to violent video games for a really long time, and if they are in which they are more likely to be more aggressive and aggressive thoughts, feelings, and behaviors as well. But it will, as for a second claim, it will also enhance social skills as well, because they're playing video games a lot, but if the child or young adult has depression, they're more likely to use video games as a way to cope, because instead of a person asking if they're right, they could play a video game and ask their friends with siblings or their parents, and they could just tell them what's happening and what's going on. And many parents will say that it's bad for their health because they're playing it too much, and it's bad for the mind, which is true. And another thing is that there's also a thing called dopamine, which is released during video games, and it's also found in drugs as well. And dopamine is usually used as a motivation, but in the brain, which may also lead to video game addiction if you play too long. And the World Health Organization recognizes this as a gaming disorder because they're playing a video game for an extended period of time, in which is dangerous for their health. But many researchers don't believe it should be called a gaming disorder because they don't know much about it, even though there are several studies that show it. And there's also specific types of video games as well that that will there there were also specific types of video games as well that will lead to that will lead to having a better brain, such as 3D video games that can essentially improve memory, but only certain types. Like Fortnite, it's more of a creative game yet skill-based game because you build things, and then it's also a skill-based game because of survival. You can also learn through video games as well, because many children already play video games and young adults as well, and they can also learn more about different languages, activities, and also learn how to work in groups and also how to be the leader. And such as Minecraft, when you work with a whole group, or when you're by yourself, you can learn how to work in a group. And such as virtual reality, some schools use virtual reality as a way to learn, as a way to learn, because they could set themselves off real-world environments, and because they could set themselves off real-world environments and real-world explanations, and see what they are passionate about in their life as well. But many people will argue that isolation as well, which is also part of video game addiction, because it can lead to unhealthy relationships and also poor health as well, such as hygiene and their mentality can be, and their mentality can also be produced as well, but they will never be that lonely because they will always have their loved ones aside from them, such as their siblings or their parents. And my recommendations is that they should regulate their time on video games, their skill and their strategy on video games, and also building and creative games in order to develop the mind more. But the limitations are the parents and teachers, because even though they want to spend time and also teach them, they might not ever get the chance to. And if the child or the young adult will also play too long, which will damage their mind. And my references. Thank you.
All right, Maria, first question for you, please. Can you talk a little bit about some of the differing perspectives that you encountered and your decision to go with the perspective that you did as opposed to the other side, so to speak?
I chose to. Can you say it again, please?
Sure. Can you talk a little bit about the differing perspectives that you encountered when it came to your topic, and why you chose to go with the perspective that you did as opposed to some of the other perspectives that you encountered?
I chose to go with the perspectives I did because it seemed.
Take a minute.
Can you say it again, please?
Sure. The first part, talk a little bit about the different perspectives that you encountered. So what were the different arguments? And then why you chose yours.
I chose my argument because when I researched more on the topic, it showed like a more positive side toward video games, and there was more evidence towards those video games toward video games being good. And the perspectives seem to be more appropriate to the findings of video games, but I could have explored more perspectives. I chose to go with the ones I did because they seemed more appropriate.
All right, second question for you. Can you talk a little bit about some follow-up research that you would have liked to have done either given more time or now realizing some of what you realized and what you concluded, where would you have liked to go back and do some more research? Is it your solution? Is it one of your claims?
I would have wanted to research more on the brain and see how it, like the hippocampus, I would have liked to research that more and what other section of the brain it also surrounds the hippocampus and how it helps with the cognitive skills. And I also would have wanted to research more on I would have also wanted to research more on the bad, like more of the physical bad health effects as well, because I only got to research more on the mental, even though that wasn't my research question, but I've also would have researched more like on the physical health effects as well.
Okay. Thanks, Anne.